the classical style. So the quest for harmonious order is behind all this. Good example here from Pythagoras about how he's getting to octaves from a string. What I would like to talk about is idealism and realism. So the book is saying here, realism is starting to take over. So as the Greeks move into their own, as it were, they adopt the original Egyptian realism, and over time, or idealism, and move toward realism. All right. So what do they mean by this? So remember we talked about this guy before. So the Greeks would have this guy. It's not the hair is different and all that, but sort of the same, right? Same basic type of bodies, even mimicking the step forward with the other foot, not an individual face. So copying. Here also early Greek. Copying, right? Okay, now we're suggesting movement, weight distribution is a little bit different. The hair could be an actual person's hair, maybe, properly propped up on a spear. More real, right, later on. So I most people think this is Poseidon here about to throw a trident would have been in this one, but it's fallen off over time because that would have been a wood handle, and there's no way for the trident. Okay, but look here also an actual beard and hair, and the muscles are a little bit more developed, right? And while we were here, they didn't have a rationale for this, but they did seem to understand that triangles connotate a lot of power, right? So you've got like triangle, 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 triangle. Here, and also, and if we get to this later, I don't know if we'll run out of time for this sort of thing later in the course, but if you wanted to sort of see like where a whole lot of triangles show up, watching the Nazi goose step, right, which is that terrified the people of Europe, and they didn't really understand why. And I think part of this is just all the display of power. Nobody would actually march their troops, their actual troops, like with the goose step marching. It takes up way too much energy. So it's just for put on a show, in other words. All right, most of the this is worth pointing out. Sorry, I forgot to do that until now, but that this is what these things would actually look like back in the day. So back in the day of all these sculptures, they're not seeing this. They're seeing something like that. They're painted. It's just that it's been such a long stretch of time that this is what shows up in the museums, and they don't want to mess with it. Right, in terms of put the paint back on. Maybe someday they'll start trying to do all this. But they did some analysis here, and they believe they know what the colors are from the pigments that were just the traces of them left. And so this is what people actually saw in the day. Goodness gracious, this could go. When you talk about things you could have a whole class on. The Parthenon is one of these things. This is an amazing building, essentially. On top of the Acropolis, the high ground, the Acropolis is just sort of the big hill. And that's on ground that's easily defended back in the day. It has military advantages. Well, after all this is over, after they don't seem to need to hole up on top of the Acropolis anymore, so they build this on top of it. They build it with the money that Pericles and these other Athenians that we talk highly of sort of took from the Delian, from when everybody pulled their funds. So this is one of the things that he built. And by the way, this is no small thing in the time. If you, in this case of Pericles here, if you can run the kind of organization to build something like this, it's a statement of power as well. So this is the dilapidated version, right? And part of this, the reason it's so in bad shape here in modern times is that, and good Lord, I forget the year, but it's many hundreds of years after this period, the Turks were controlling this area, and they stored munitions here, and it blew. A bunch of gunpowder blew up, essentially, which made the whole thing worse. But back in the day, you can picture this as an intact building. Statement of power because it shows that you can, from the quarry, right, get all this stuff, place it way up on the hill. You've got each specialized trade is doing something different here. You're making these columns and intricate carvings all through here. Well, if you can organize to the degree of do this, well then yes, you're still the same people who organized enough to defeat the Persians and the great for the Athenians anyway, who led the great maritime battle, right? And it was the Spartans on the other side in the land pass in the 300 movie that shows up, right? All right, so there's a more elaborate. This is what they actually look like back at the time, but notice that the high ground here was important way before all this other stuff came along. Let you read through all this on your own, and what we want to get to here is just the things that go through culture. So notice the look here. So we're way back time of Greeks, right? Ancient Greeks. And so we're going to fast forward a little bit to the modern buildings, right, that will end up essentially stealing the same look. So when you see, oh shoot, I went the wrong direction. So this is a modern building, the Federal Hall in New York. So monetary place, right? They didn't need to build this like this. So why do they do it? Because the look in and of itself becomes dignified. Right, so we do this over time, and you all have access, by the way, to the same sort of thing locally. So if you go down to SMU, to Mustang Stadium, I think most people know where Mustang Stadium is, and forgive me if I'm get the streets incorrect here. You can use your iMap on the way down, but I think you're going to exit Mockingbird, go by Mustang Stadium, and then hang the first right. Meadows Museum is not too far from there, and if you can park in the parking garage and just go walk around that older section of SMU. Well, believe it or not, right? They used to call SMU the UVA of Texas, right? This back before they became embarrassed to call it that. So, well, who designed UVA? University of Virginia, Thomas Jefferson. Well, why like the Thomas Jefferson, the founding father? Well, yes, that Thomas Jefferson. One of his other interests was as an architect. He studied ancient architecture. For him, Roman architecture, but really the Romans just inherited the Greek stuff. And so, if you go look at the buildings in the oldest part of the UVA campus, and then go to that stretch at SMU, the buildings are about the same, right? And if you go there this time of year, at time I'm recording this screencast, it's May. I'm not sure if any of the students are left at SMU right now, but if they are, it's kind of nice if you just go down there. People throwing frisbees and balls now that the weather is nice, and a lot of grounds before it. But the buildings themselves are gonna have that old look, right? Just like SMU. It's not going to be exactly like this, but you'll see what I'm talking about if you go down there. And I didn't cover a whole lot of stuff in this screencast, as you saw. I don't have a whole lot of stuff highlighted here because I know it's a lot for this section. But again, anything that sticks out to you from this section that we're covering now, or the Greeks in general, should be a wonderful topic for your first presentation. It's all, I know it's a lot.